Hi, I'm Griffin Anderson. I am the Electronic Resources Librarian for Appalachian State University.
And I am Stephanie Bennett. I am the liaison librarian for the sciences at App State University, and this is analyzing marketing strategies for AI products by leading library vendors. Both of us are on the resource and discovery team at our university. So to get us started, we decided that we wanted to look at, rather than just looking at AI, we wanted to look at how our vendors were trying to sell us AI. AI is sort of a unifying service right now. It's being offered by a variety of vendors from a bunch of different perspectives. Kind of everyone is in the game and they're all pushing AI on us in very different ways. We decided from our collections division that we wanted to review these trends at this moment in time because we know this is probably going to continue to be something that evolves over time and the language surrounding it will change. So this is a qualitative study that aims to look at the marketing strategies used when there is a market saturation. And in this case, it would be AI. So the reasons for our research was basically because we feel like we receive an enormous amount of messaging that comes from vendors across all of the land. And I kind of just did in one of my folders just a quick sample of things that I had received from January to October of this year. And in that one folder alone, I had 670 emails from vendors. AI is being pushed from all different directions that regardless of the platform, whether it's humanities, science, or health science, AI has kind of proliferated across all the library services. And so we sought to kind of just ask, how are vendors talking about AI products and what are collection librarians taking away from this messaging?
So we have sampled emails that we had both received, and we took a look between October 2024 and July 2025, which was a time period that we saw a marked increase in vendor emails that were marketing AI products. So our criteria for this is that we needed to find messaging that was specifically pointing to AI products, and this could come in a number of different forms, but it had to be sales oriented. So we used a non-probability purposive sampling as our sampling method because we wanted to ensure that a good representation of products that were being marketed across the board. And then we needed a large number coming from our leading library vendors, our mainstream vendors, because we do plan to return to the study in a few months to reevaluate how AI is being discussed and how these changes might happen over time. So we used a software called In Vivo to do our qualitative coding. So we had taken all of these emails that were sampled and we loaded them into the software, and then we were able to load our code book in and to identify individual phrases, words, sentences, paragraphs, anything according to the different codes we had created.
So this is basically how we constructed our code book. We thought about all of the different ways that you could qualitatively talk about language and decided that ultimately there were really only two ways to look at this, and that was from an objective language perspective and a subjective language perspective. And objective language is exactly what it sounds like. It would be where it's pointing out to an authoritative work, perhaps an article or a white paper. There's some underlying source that I can return to sort of verify what the marketing messaging is asserting. Identifiable customer testimonial, even if we didn't know who these people were, there was a name or somebody of authority being connected to it. It wasn't just like experts all agree or any sort of vague terminology in that sense. Numerical, so this looks like data had been pulled in some form, also showing that there was some objectivity to what was being discussed. Textual, like a descriptive use where it's clearly indicated what the AI product will do for me. So X equals Y, and that's always consistently known as you're reading the emails, and then tied to a corporate mission. A lot of these vendors are now asserting that AI is the next step in their evolution as a company. And so when that happens, they tie it back to their corporate mission.
Now, on the other hand, there was a lot of subjective language that we were finding. So we found that non-identifiable customer testimonials would be subjective. For example, there would be a quote that would come from a librarian, and it wouldn't be, more identified than that. Any sort of calls to expertise, thing like experts say or top people in your field would say, certain things, and then any sort of non-descriptive use cases we also identified as subjective. And then finally, we were finding a great number of buzzwords and vague language that weren't necessarily saying anything that fell into the subjective category. And we found that 87.5% of the coded emails included a heavy saturation of what we were finding as buzzwords. And 70.8% contained non-descriptive use cases, 58.4% contained identified vague language.
So what are buzzwords for us? It kind of going back to this slide. This has a place where we have found buzzwords, more efficiently review, analyze, and interrogate documents. That wasn't really very clear as far as the meaning we were supposed to get behind it. So that is an example of what we would consider while looking at the messages as being a buzz heavy set of language.
So the question is, does anyone know what AI is doing for libraries? In initial analysis, we are believing that these sort of emails are vague enough that neither the vendors or the recipients of these emails really are getting any one specific thing out of them. We're finding that we could both take different opinions as we were going through our code book of what one thing meant, what was buzzwords, what was vague language, what any sort of underlying meanings were. And we do think that we can do a further analysis to see what sort of information librarians and libraries are taking from this.
And that is our presentation.